Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. You know, we love to dig into what's happening in the world, so today we're taking a look at all the big global events that went down on December 26, 2024.
Sounds good.
Pulled 10 top stories from a bunch of international news outlets. You ready to get informed?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. So we got to start with some tough news.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to kick things off with a tragedy. An Azerbaijan Airlines flight
Man,
crash in Kazakhstan, 38 fatalities reported.
no, that's awful. Do we know anything about what happened?
There's some body cam footage from first responders, capturing the immediate aftermath. It's pretty chilling.
Oh, wow.
Investigators are still trying to figure out exactly what went wrong, but one possibility they're considering, and it's a chilling one, is that the plane was accidentally hit by a Russian missile.
Oh, gosh. That is chilling, especially with everything going on in the world right now. That really makes you think about how risky international travel can be.
Definitely does. And speaking of vulnerabilities, this next story really highlights how interconnected our world is these days. Japan Airlines, they were hit by a huge cyber attack, threw all their operations into chaos.
Wow. It's kind of scary how much of an impact something like that can have. It's not just flight delays either.
Right.
Makes you think about all the other ways a cyber attack could cripple critical systems worldwide.
Yeah, you're spot on. Airlines, they're just one example. Think about power grids, financial systems, hospitals. The digital world, if we don't take it seriously, it can have a real impact on the real world.
It's a scary thought for sure.
Definitely is. And unfortunately, things don't really get any lighter when we shift to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Still no sign of a resolution in sight. Both sides are blaming each other for the failure of the ceasefire talks. And casualties are still rising in Gaza, over 1,000 people reported injured.
It's just a devastating situation. So many lives lost and affected. And it just seems like it's been dragging on for so long now. How did we even get to this point?
Well, to really understand it, you got to look at the whole history. Decades of tension in the region.
Yeah.
It's this complex web of political and religious and territorial disputes.
Right.
No easy answers.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by it all, for sure. But I guess understanding that historical context is super important if we ever want to see some kind of peaceful resolution.
It really is. Okay, so let's step back from these heavier topics for a second and talk about something a little bit more lighthearted.
Okay, yeah, I think we could all use a little break from the doom and gloom.
I think so. So get this. After more than 2 centuries, the bald eagle has finally been officially named the national bird of the United States.
Wait, are you serious? It took them that long? I mean, it's like the most iconic American symbol ever. You'd think that would have been one of the first things they decided on.
You'd think so, right? But it seems like bureaucracy moves at its own pace.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I guess better late than never, right?
Right. It's kind of funny, though, when you think about it.
Totally. It's a good reminder that some things just take time. But on a more serious note, today marks the 20th anniversary of the Indian Ocean tsunami.
Yeah, definitely a day for reflection. This tragedy claimed over 220,000 lives.
It's hard to even fathom the scale of that loss.
It is, and it just reminds us of the incredible power of nature, the importance of disaster preparedness, both for individuals and for whole nations.
Definitely. And, it makes me think about another story we have today, one that shows how far we've come in trying to understand and work with the forces of nature. A NASA probe just made the closest ever pass by the sun.
Yeah, this is groundbreaking. The probe's collecting tons of data on the sun's atmosphere,
Amazing.
solar winds, and how they affect us here on Earth.
So it's more than just a cool space exploration thing. This actually has real implications for us back here.
It does. We're talking about potentially unlocking the secrets of space weather.
Wow. And understanding things like solar flares and geomagnetic storms, that could help us protect, well, a lot. Our satellites, communication systems, even our power grids from, potentially really serious disruptions.
Exactly.
It's wild to think that something happening millions of miles away can have such a direct impact on our everyday lives here.
It really is. But, with all the conflict and tragedy we've been talking about, it's also kind of nice to see signs of resilience and joy in other parts of the world.
Oh, absolutely. There's always something positive happening somewhere.
Right. Take, for example, the Dedi December celebrations happening in Nigeria right now.
Oh, yeah. I read about that.
It's inspiring to see people embracing the holiday spirit. Even with all the economic difficulties they're facing, it really speaks to, our capacity for joy and connection, even when things are tough.
It's a great reminder that life goes on, and finding those moments of joy is so important. But circling back to the world stage, We've got some political developments cooking. Bangladesh wants India to extradite their ousted prime minister.
Oh,
Could be a really awkward diplomatic situation.
Definitely could be. And over in Germany, Angela Merkel's old rival, Friedrich Merz, he's making a bid for the chancellorship.
Wow, politics. It never stops, does it? Always some power play happening somewhere. Makes you wonder how much of global politics is driven by these personal ambitions and rivalries.
Definitely something to think about.
For sure. But let's step back from the headlines for a minute and zoom in on some other stories that caught our eye. Iran is dealing with a huge energy crisis right now. Blackouts all over the country, really disrupting people's lives.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, what's causing all that?
It's a bunch of different factors. Sanctions, aging infrastructure, and drought conditions, they're all impacting hydroelectric power. It really highlights the challenges we're facing globally when it comes to meeting energy needs sustainably and fairly.
It's a good reminder that what happens in one part of the world can have ripple effects everywhere else.
Absolutely. All right, before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, let's just touch on a few other, well, let's say, intriguing stories that popped up today. There's this man in Uganda who's making headlines for having a, well, let's just say a very large family, 102 children and 578 grandchildren.
Wait, 578 grandchildren? That's unbelievable. I can't even imagine what family gatherings must be like.
It's definitely a story that sparks some curiosity.
It does. And then we have some accusations of hypocrisy flying around about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's international travel.
Right, right.
And a really bizarre case. A body was found in a plane's wheel well after it landed in Maui.
It seems like truth is often stranger than fiction.
That's for sure, especially when you start looking beyond the main headlines. But we'll dig into those stories and more in the next part of our deep dive.
Wild stuff, huh? Before we jump into those other stories, I think it's worth taking a minute to consider, like, what does all this actually mean, for us, for how we see the world?
That's a great point. It's so easy to just get caught up in the headlines.
Yeah.
What are the big takeaways here?
Well, take that cyberattack on Japan Airlines, for instance. It's a real wake-up call. It shows us how vulnerable we are, all of us, because of our reliance on technology.
Right.
It makes you think, like, are my passwords strong enough? Do I have what is it called, multi-factor authentication set up on my accounts? Those things might seem small,
Yeah.
but they can really make a difference.
And then on a larger scale, it really underscores how important it is for, governments, businesses, everyone, to invest in cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
Got to be proactive, right?
Yeah.
Not just waiting for something bad to happen.
Totally. Now, shifting gears to the Israel-Hamas conflict, I get it. It's easy to feel totally overwhelmed. The complexity, the violence, it just seems never ending. But the key here is, like you said earlier, understanding the nuances. We need to know the history, the different perspectives, who's involved internationally. It's about developing, I guess you could say, informed empathy, not just reacting to whatever we see in the headlines.
I think that's so important, not just for this conflict, but for any conflict. It's so easy to just jump to conclusions. You see a soundbite, a social media post, and you think you know the whole story, but it's so much more complicated than that.
It really is. And it's also important to remember that even in the middle of all that conflict, there are people, organizations working so hard to help, providing aid, advocating for peace. Their stories don't always make the headlines, but they're out there.
They're so important. They remind us that even in the darkest situations, there's still hope and compassion.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about that NASA probe, that close encounter with the sun. This isn't just like some cool science story.
Right.
This has real implications for life here on Earth.
I was thinking about those images they released.
Yeah.
Incredible. But yeah, you're right. There's a much bigger picture.
Definitely. Solar flares, geomagnetic storms, they can mess with our satellites, our communications, even our power grids right here on Earth.
Yeah.
The more we know about the sun, the better we can protect ourselves.
It's kind of mind-blowing,
Yeah.
By studying something so far away, we can learn things that could help safeguard our technology, our whole way of life right here.
It is pretty amazing. And speaking of safeguarding, the anniversary of the Indian Ocean tsunami, it's a stark reminder about disaster preparedness.
Oh, yeah.
Early warning systems, those things are crucial. Whether it's a tsunami, an earthquake, whatever, having a plan can really make a difference.
You can't control everything, but you can try to be prepared.
Exactly. And, while we're on the topic of resilience, those Dedi December celebrations in Nigeria.
Yes.
It's such a good reminder that people find ways to celebrate, to find joy, even when things are tough.
It's really inspiring, I think.
It is. It's like a testament to the human spirit.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get back to politics for a sec. This whole Bangladesh-India extradition thing, it's a perfect example of how personal relationships and rivalries can have a huge impact on the global stage.
It's like watching a game of chess.
Yeah.
Each move has all these consequences that ripple outward.
Right.
It's fascinating and a little scary at the same time.
It is. And that over in Germany, with Friedrich Merz going for the chancellorship, it's a reminder that things are always changing in the political world.
Always in flux.
Yeah. It's on us to stay informed and engaged, read up on the candidates, think critically about their platforms.
And most importantly, vote.
Absolutely. Be an active citizen, not just a passive observer. Okay, let's talk about some of those more unusual stories we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The man in Uganda with the 102 children and 578 grandchildren.
Oh, yeah. What a family.
It's amazing. I mean, I can't even imagine the logistics of that. Family dinners, holidays.
It definitely makes you think about, what family means, how different cultures view family.
And the environmental impact. I mean,
Oh, yeah, that too.
102 children. Wow. Okay, another interesting one, the whispers about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Oh,
Accusations of hypocrisy around their international travel.
it seems like no matter what they do, they can't stay out of the spotlight.
Nope.
The media, the public, always watching.
It's tough. Shows you the downsides of fame, I guess. And lastly, that case of the body found in the plane's wheel. Well,
Oh, right.
it's just tragic. It really highlights the lengths that some people will go to try and escape their circumstances, to find a better life.
Absolutely. It makes you think about the inequality, the desperation that drives people to take such risks.
For sure.
You've
It's a lot to process, all this news. The big stuff, the small stuff. It can feel pretty overwhelming.
You're right. It really makes you wonder, how do we make sense of it all? How do
Yeah.
we stay informed without getting completely overwhelmed?
Yeah, it's a lot. It really feels like information overload sometimes.
It really does.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with that? How do we filter out the noise and find the stuff that really matters?
Right. How do we make sure we're not just, skimming the surface?
Well, I think it starts with being really aware of where we're getting our information from, you
Yeah.
know? Are we checking multiple sources? Are we getting different perspectives? Are we actually fact-checking things?
It's so easy to just fall into these echo chambers, especially online.
Oh, totally.
You just see the same opinions, the same headlines over and over.
Exactly. So, making that effort to seek out different viewpoints, it's really important.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to remember that staying informed doesn't mean you have to be glued to the news 24/7.
Right.
It's okay to take breaks, step away from the screen, do something you enjoy, recharge a little bit.
Yeah, self-care is crucial, especially when the world feels, particularly crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff today, but I think it's important to focus on those positive stories too, like the Dedi December celebrations.
Yeah, those are great.
It's a good reminder that there's still joy, there's still resilience, even when things are tough.
Absolutely. Those little glimmers of hope, we got to hold on to those.
We do. So as we wrap up our deep dive into all the news from December 26, 2024, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
What story, from everything we talked about, what really stuck with you? What questions did it bring up for you? How does it connect to your own life, your own view of the world?
Yeah, take some time to really think about it. Maybe it'll spark a conversation with a friend, or maybe you'll want to learn more about a specific topic, or even, get inspired to do something, to take action in your own community.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Staying informed is just the first step, right? It's
Yeah.
what we do with that information that really matters.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us on this journey through the global news landscape.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.